Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to another transfer discussion where the transfer discussion to hopefully end all transfer discussions now the window's closed, but it isn't really closed because we've been linked with a free agent. You know, we're going to get straight into the reasons behind that in this show. And we'll start off by basically the reason we're asking these questions and we're actually having this discussion is, of course, Seamus Coleman has been a pretty decent performer for us so far this season, but he's got injured. Shock horror playing for Ireland. When, as an Everton player, not got injured while playing for Ireland, I do not know. But yeah, Seamus Coleman, injured playing for Ireland. We left ourselves exposed with Seamus being still the first choice at the age of 33. You know, still a full international captain. He was always going to go away and play for Ireland. He's got himself injured. And it leaves us in a bit of a pickle. And this is what this discussion is basically about, is why haven't we signed another right back? And yeah, how have we landed ourselves in this mess? And we touched on it a little bit in the previous show about when we were talking about hammers. But why didn't we sign another right back this window, David?
Again, you know, I think we're complicated every 12 months, 18 months, aren't we, by the fact that we change management. I think, again, there's a bit of a lack of clarity around the director of football role. You know, Everton's recruitment seems to be a bit scattergun at times. You know, there's always reports that maybe Mashiri's trying to buy a player. You know, there's reports that the manager specifically wants a player. We just spoke about James. You know, that's a clear example of when a manager is pushing for a player. And no doubt there's a bit of a team approach, you know, where they do sit down with the director of football and do agree that them transfers. It does seem to be slightly complicated this summer. There was mentions that obviously Dumfries was possibly lined up, and then maybe Rafa came in and wasn't as sold on him as maybe the plans were.
I thought it was more a case of Dumfries not being sold on us.
Well, it depends which side you read of it, because I did read a report to say that actually Rafa had a few concerns defensively over him and wasn't totally sold on him. Obviously, he did choose Inter, and the reports were that he wanted Champions League football at Inter. So it's hard to read between the lines, but, you know, certainly what doesn't help us is when we change managers every 12, 18 months and you know, the continuity of what we want slightly changes. You know, that's the problem really with this. Sometimes the director of football is supposed to mitigate that. They're supposed to be the constant that ensures that single approach, you know, and
that's precisely what the purpose of it is.
Yeah, and again, I don't think we're getting that right. You know, the balance is not there. You know, it does seem to be too many people getting involved in these things, and either way, we needed a right back. The right back's not come in. You know why that is. You know, I suppose we'll never really know. All we know, the fact is they've not really achieved what they needed to achieve, was to get a right back in this window, and probably the window before that, and the window before that. So, you know, at the end of the day, you can't constantly stick up for people. You know, there is an argument there to say maybe, you know, that they tried for Dumfries, he went elsewhere. They then maybe looked to make the Niles. Obviously, that got blocked. You know, and they worked their way down the list maybe, and it just didn't work out like that. But look, you know, we shouldn't be in this position. We should be planning better than this, you know, and I don't believe that it should be a surprise how much players cost either. You know, surely there's inquiries that happen, you know, months in advance for these things. You know, obviously we offered two bids potentially for Patterson at Rangers, and then obviously didn't meet the valuation. Surely they had an idea for what valuation that would be, and if we couldn't meet it, then why were we bidding in the first place? You know, it does seem poor. The only positive is I read a report from that Daniel McDonald from the Independent, and he said that it sounds as though it was more of a precaution for Seamus, and he was suffering from a muscle complaint. So they've just left him out of that game as opposed to him being, you know, seriously injured or being a bad injury. But, you know, we know Seamus is going to miss games anyway. You know, it's, you know, even if he is back for the Burnley game potentially in the season, he's going to have periods where he's out. And we're going to then have to rely on that next fella in the squad, whoever that may be, that we go to. John Joe Kenny, you know, he might look at Godfrey to play there. I read the other day, again unofficially, that that he is seeing Ben Godfrey potentially as being his fullback alternative either side, when the fullbacks aren't available. But that then complicates things, because I'd argue that Ben Godfrey is quite essential in the middle as well. He's our fastest defender.
Our best centre back.
He's our best centre back. And I like centre backs that defend on the front foot. Quite often, Michael Keane retreats, should you say, when teams are attacking him. And Amina naturally starts to do that as well. When you watch him, Ben Godfrey always faces up and actually attacks, because he's quite confident in his own, in his own approach, and he's got that pace and snappiness about him.
Yeah, he knows if he gets skinned, he can recover.
Yeah, and when he's not there, we lose a bit of that. It's a big ask then, because Holgate's been largely inconsistent, mainly inconsistent rather than good. But there was a spell where he did start to look promising towards the back end of a couple of seasons ago. So look, it's a big ask. We shouldn't really be in this position, but we are, and it's going to be frustrating. Hopefully we get through to January and it doesn't hurt us too much, and then we can look at it in January, hopefully.
Yeah, well, there's not much value normally in the January market anyway, but I think the issue lies with, we say there we might have gone for Denzel Dumfries, he didn't fancy us, or Benitez didn't fancy him. Even if Benitez didn't fancy him, there must be some right back out there that Benitez did like the look of.
Yeah, it's an odd one, and this is again what we were talking about, direction. We don't really genuinely know how much money was at our disposal, and we don't know. If we didn't sign a right back, all right, well, why didn't we sign them? Is it because the right backs available didn't fit our plan? But what is our plan? So that leads us to get frustrated, because we all just feel like we're just falling short every single transfer window. And it does feel like a failure. If we knew some more of the context of why we didn't sign a right back, then I'm not saying justify every decision, but we don't even know where the plan is for us to get in 2 years' time. So that leads to frustration, and rightly so. Look, we've had plenty of windows to do this now, and we're still in this position where we haven't got anyone.
It's absolutely ridiculous, to be honest, that we find ourselves in this position again. And as we discussed in the previous show when we were talking about James, I think we spoke about the need for Marcel Brands. I think maybe not necessarily Brands, maybe another member of the personnel, but somebody needs to come out and make a statement and explain what the plan is, because we've seen it at a few other clubs where the fans have been frustrated, Aston Villa, Newcastle, Tottenham, where the fans are frustrated at what they appear to be maybe a bit of a transfer policy that they're not happy with. It's a great opportunity for Marcel Brands or somebody else to come out here and set the record straight and quell some of the unrest, the anxiety. And it just feels like they don't want to do it, and they're keeping us fans in the cold, and in doing that, they're causing more resentment among the fans, more anger, that it feels like sometimes the fans don't matter, that we don't deserve to be told, we don't need to be told what's going on. It's not our club, it is our club. I think we need to be kept in the loop.
Yeah, there'll be people that will probably listen to this and say, well, I think otherwise, and that's fine. But I agree with you, James. I would like to have an idea where we're going. And I think that does add context to it then. Short term, you're looking at it and we're going to have to get to January. John Joe Kenny, as we've seen, I think he's short of the Premier League. I'd love to see John Joe Kenny as a local lad to do well and all that kind of stuff. But, you've got to sometimes just call it as it is, and I just don't think he's at that level. I think he could make a good championship player. Obviously he's done all right at Schalke in the Bundesliga. And I say all right. He tends to be relatively okay at most things. He's not very good in most things, almost like when you generate a player on like one of these football games and they give you like the lowest possible stats in every single area, and it's like good all-rounder but not really great in anything. I feel sorry saying that for Kenny, but I just don't think he's Premier League level, and I can see one of Holgate or Godfrey shifting across to fill in for him, and that then leaves a short potentially in another area, and that like a domino effect then, isn't it? Potentially if you have a couple of injuries. Look, I'll try and flip it round a bit. There is another way of thinking about it, saying that look at Liverpool last year. They were defending champions. They played in the Champions League football, and they had a couple of injuries in the centre back department. They knew that Massive and Gomez were quite injury prone. Didn't really bring anyone in there at first. They ended up having to play two centre halves at two centre mids at centre half for half a season, and they're playing a couple of young lads at times at full back. So look, some of the Champions League sides are short at times as well. It's not ideal. I do look back sometimes, and I was looking at the squads around the start of 2003, 4, 5, 6, and all that, and I was wanting to know, what depth did we have then? And I think at times there, I think we had one year we had John O'Kane and someone like Bastoni or someone like that as our backup. So look, we've done it before, we've got through, but it's not perfect. We've spent a lot of money, and that's where the frustration comes, because we've basically wasted hundreds of millions there, and we're still in a position where we're so short, and over the course of 1, 2, 3 seasons in the one position. And Seamus has been excellent during that time, but he's coming to a time now where he's going to pick up injuries, and he's not getting any younger.
And with that in mind, they've had Marcel Brands' this is 4th summer transfer window that's just been completed, and the Coleman situation, finding a long-term replacement, should have been on the table straight away in his first summer. With Coleman, only just recovering from a broken leg and on the verge of going into his 30s. He's now 33. I think it should have been addressed long before. And at any well-run club, it will have been addressed. But the club run like a circus, and I think it might not be run like a circus. I don't know, but we can only assume that it is because we're not kept in the loop. And these kinds of accusations you can level against the club can be leveled against them until they state otherwise, and give us some clarity and confirm what the plan is.
Yeah, no, I think I think the circus one's probably a bit harsh, but that's just my personal point of view. But I do think I would personally, like to see some clarity as to where we're going. I think, like you say there, 3, 4 windows, we haven't brought a position that most Everton fans will tell you we've needed. It's sometimes it's in the eye that the fan, isn't it? Where you can get 10 Evertonians in a room, 5 will say he's not good enough, and another 5 will say that he is. But right back, I think if you got 10 Evertonians in a room, 10 Evertonians would say that we needed a new right back, and I think it's been clear for us that I'm going to say a new right back. I'm not saying get rid of Seamus, because he's been a great player and he's still got a role to play. But look at what we've done on the other side with Lucas Digne and Baines. We kind of brought Lucas Digne in at the perfect time. Baines still had that 12 months, and that seemed to work seamlessly. So the frustration then becomes, why didn't we do the same, succession plan on the other side, and why are we still in a position where the player is potentially is going to be playing too many games really for his body, what his body can hold. But he picked up a little knock at midweek. Hopefully he's back for Burnley, but I suspect then that it's not going to be the first time he's injured this season, because history tells us that he does tend to miss groups of games.
And he does, but I think the issue I have is it's not that we're having a go at Seamus. It's more Seamus is being hung out to dry a little bit. Really, it should be at well-run clubs, a long-term replacement for the current incumbent of a position is brought in 2 or 3 years before they're actually intended to succeed the other player, and they're sort of developed and sort of integrated into the squad in time, and we just don't seem to be strategic like that.
Yeah, and you know what? I think there's a lot of work going on in the background with the under-23s as well. The under-23s has been a source of much frustration for me. Again, I think we've had players staying potentially much too long. I know the oldest player now potentially in the under-23s is 20. So they've made huge strides there. But it's still going to take 2, 3, 4, 5 years for us to start seeing any effects of that. Really speaking, you'd like to see a good young upcoming player that can fit in when they're needed. I suppose you had a Branthwaite. I really rate him. I think on the opposite side that he's a player that wouldn't worry me too much, because I actually think he's ahead of where people think he is in terms of what the player he is. He's quite an intelligent player as well. But John Joe Kenny, it's been no secret that we've loaned him out to Celtic, we've loaned him out to Schalke. He's obviously not, he's been surplus to requirements at the club for some time, and he's still here, and we still haven't got that right back, or we say backup, but we want a player really to compete with Seamus there, keep him on his toes, and when he's not fit, then that player comes in and Seamus has got to work his way back in as well. It's not, competition's healthy in every position, and we just haven't got that level of competition up over there.
I'm obviously very unhappy about the way the transfer side of things is being run, but how much of it falls on Marcel Brands?
Again, it's hard to tell, isn't it? Because at the end of
we aren't told what the roles are.
No, and I think there is confusion at times because you read so many mixed reports. Depending on what article you read, if you might be Paul Joyce talking, or it might be Athletic, and there's talks of different people fancying different players. Now, look, I know that Liverpool sit down as a panel, Klopp inputs into that, and they have that transfer committee as such. There always has to be someone that oversees that, and makes that override decision. So there's no point in buying a player, I suppose, that the manager doesn't want, because it's lost money, because the manager's going to look at him and say, well, I didn't want him, so he's not playing. So you do need that you need that engagement, you need that agreement across the board. But it's very hard to pin down sometimes with Everton. It's frustrating almost, and there's certainly a lack of clarity. And some of this comes, I always say, if you don't control the narrative, then other people will make it up. And
Precisely.
And you've seen in the media that people have suggested, that one person wanted one manager, someone else wanted someone else, and that happens because there's a grey area there. So people start to write stuff and make and who can discount it until we actually know, then it's hard to discount it, and it's hard for us to actually answer that question because we're not clear on it ultimately.
And this is why we need clarity. But also, I think in a bit of a cynical way, I'm also thinking, are they withholding the clarity so they can share accountability for the mistakes?
Well, look, it's one of them, isn't it? Marcel Brands ultimately probably could walk away from Everton Football Club, and bizarrely, he'd been linked with Man United a few times. He'd probably get a job there overnight. So, you've got to ask yourself, if he feels like he's being prohibited from doing his job, why doesn't he be more vocal, or why doesn't he walk away from his job if he doesn't feel like he can do it? But I suppose it's easier. Me said this, sat on a microphone as a fan. I'm not on, a huge salary at a club. Maybe he sees something and we just don't see it. But again, it's hard to judge because we don't really know what's going on, to be honest with you. And there's just so much confusion at the moment. And hopefully, I do believe the last couple of windows have been much better. I believe that we were signing the wrong type of player, that Everton fans didn't really buy into. The last couple of windows, the players seem to be hard work, and they seem to be more athletic. They seem to be a bit more driven than maybe we've signed in a few transfer windows gone. So I do think he's adapting. I do think we are slightly, starting to see a different type of player coming to Everton again. I put a tweet up actually the other day, and I couldn't help but think about it. Thinking about our spine, potentially Mina, Godfrey, Alan Doucouré, Calvert-Lewin, Rondon, all big athletic lads, and probably since David Moyes, I've not been able to look at our side and think we've got like a really big athletic team that can match teams. And then we've got like, Luca Dean, Townsend, Coleman, Gray, who are all fast, grafters, they work hard for the team. So I do think that, look, the DNA slightly changed over the last couple of windows of the side, and it is going back towards where it needs to be. I think Martinez may have changed that. He started signing, smaller Tom Cleverley's, the more tick-attacker players that we didn't really buy into. But, is that what we're trying to do? I don't know. I've got no idea. It's just me looking at the DNA and making my own mind up.
For me, the Everton DNA has always been to have a team that are aggressive and forward thinking.
Yeah, and work hard for the crowd. They're honest. They don't shy away from challenges. But look, the last 3 games, I'm going to discount the Huddersfield game because we changed the team around quite a bit. But the last 3 games I've looked at a bit more, and I've actually enjoyed watching the game. And I felt like the side come away and have worked hard, and that's what I want to see. But with 3 games, let's review at the end of the season, because there'll be ups and downs as we go, and we know we started well last year, so it's a big ask for us to continue to do that level of work.
And it's also, let's not forget that it has been quite a favourable early fixture calendar.
Yeah. Look, it has. But Leeds, haven't been in the league since 2004 with, since their first full crowd at the Premier League. So that was a hostile environment. I felt like they handled it well. I think Brighton was probably one of the best away performances, the most complete away performances I've seen, where we just totally nullified the other side. I don't think Brighton are a good side as well, by the way. They get a lot of draws there, and certainly make it hard for teams. And I think Potter came out and said after it, Everton were a level above. But yeah, again, like, I'm trying to add some balance here and not get carried away, because we do this every season. It's 3 games. We've shown some good signs, but where we might get caught out is, as we've just discussed, if we lose 1 or 2 players in some of these key positions, it'd be a shame if that then undone all the good work that we've done, in other games where we've had our first choice 11.
Yeah, and with that in mind, the right back, if the injury to Coleman is longer than like a week or so, you're talking about asking either John Joe Kenny to step up, as we've said, maybe Holgate or Godfrey as well has been discussed, but there's also been links to a free transfer of Serge Aurier, who of course left Spurs in the summer. What's your take on that?
I wouldn't go near him with Barchwell, to be honest with you. I like to think you're looking at a player and you either think it's a player or it's not. Every time I've seen Aurier, I've just not really been impressed with him. I think he's been a bit of a sideshow. He's always kicked players, foul players. He gets stupid bookings. His discipline doesn't seem to be there. He's almost, I think we've seen it when we brought Sidibe in. The Sidibe was marauding forward, but discipline-wise, defending, he was poor. Aurier, for me, seems similar in profile. Albeit that Aurier's got 2 socks. He doesn't seem like a man who can defend either. He bombs forwards like a cannonball, but then struggles on his defensive side of the game and discipline. So again, he's going to be on huge wages, you'd imagine. He's not going to come cheap. He strikes me as a man who'd go to Arsenal on a 3-year contract on 140 grand a week and then never play. Everton have made that mistake too many times. All the work that we've done, reducing contracts, moving that type of player on, I don't want to see us, make that same mistake again. So I wouldn't go anywhere near Aurier. Obviously, there is an exception to that. If say, for example, you just come for 12 months and then there was an option. But again, not for me. He's not. I think we should just get to January with what we've got, sadly, because that's what the cards we've been dealt.
And would you get a right back in January?
Yeah, I think you've got to try and use every window. I think if they are looking at Patterson, potentially Rangers, let's see where they are in 6 months financially. The SPL, the money's not huge there. So there's always potential that they may reconsider, that his position come January. So, I wouldn't rule it out. We need to push for a right back every single window because we're about 3 windows too late. So it's
I'd say about 5 or 6, mate.
Yeah, you're right, mate. And there's you can't excuse it. So yeah, I was, that, and let's not get to January and start looking. I hope that we've got an idea now of what we want, and they should now be pushing for that. And give, because it's at the end of the day, it's not just about us deciding we want whoever. All our fans were up in arms saying we can't get rid of Richarlison because we've got no time to replace him. Whoever we come in for, the team's going to be in the same position. That you need to give the team, the selling team, time to look for replacements too. So make your minds up early, Marcel and Rafa, and start looking now, because we can't go for the full season with the depth that we've got.
Definitely not. And I think that in mind, like I say, start looking now, but tell the fans that you're doing that as well. Come out and make one of these statements. I mean, I think it's frustrating to see clubs who I think are some of the few that are worse run than us, and they're coming out and doing that, and we're still, hiding. Why are we hiding? What are they hiding from?
Yeah, look, I just think that it's not. Everyone's got their own approaches. I personally, that's just my personal point of view, that I'd like to see, some context of what we can expect, where we're going, and what our strategy is. We've changed managers that many times. Obviously Rafa's come in now. I actually was going to be. He obviously wasn't my first choice manager. He probably wasn't my second or third choice, but he's here now. I'll back whatever manager's in charge of the football club. But actually, I've said this a couple of times on the Bobblers podcast, that sometimes hope comes from the most unlikeliest of places. I think that we might have touched a bit lucky with him. He's a man that does strategize, does think more longer term, and does hold the board to account, and will no doubt have difficult conversations with Marcel Brands if he believes that, the Brands isn't doing what he should be doing. So I think that he will bring some things that we actually need right now, whether we realise it or not.
I think what I do like about Benitez is he just sets high standards.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, and Jay, he said that he's been out of the game, and believe he's been keeping libraries of players, and really, he's obsessed with with the game of football. And it's very much a loved, not a part-time job for him. So whoever come in, we needed that mould of character, I think, because look at Arsenal under Arteta. It was a bit of an idealist manager, and Arsenal seem in a terrible place now, 12 months on. And I think they need an experienced man in there to rescue them, because they could easily get lost amongst that relegation fight if they don't quickly book their ideas up.
You think it's really that bad at Arsenal?
I just don't. Look, they've got decent players there, but if they get towards Christmas and they're still not really picking up traction and points, have they really got the characters to get themselves out of it? Have they really got the leaders on the pitch and in the dressing room? I know they've got Aubameyang on 350 grand a week or whatever they give him in that new contract. I honestly, again, that style of football, can they really mix it, when they need to, if they are in trouble? They did do this last season. They kind of flitted between playing well and then have bad patches. So who knows? They may come back from it. But I don't think Arteta, potentially, if they're in a dogfight, Arteta's not the fella I'd be looking for to get me out of it.
No, I have to agree with that. But in terms of Benitez, I think he is quite meticulous, and I think, like you say, we needed that, especially after having lousy managers like Ronald Koeman, who spent most of his time on the golf course. It's a good change.
It is, yeah, and funny enough, you should say that. I think someone put a picture up the other day from Steve Bruce on an EasyJet or whatever, jetting off to Portugal to play golf. And it made me think of Koeman straight away. Was he really ever committed to be here? I think there were huge question marks. I think he just seen his Everton as a easy club to come to, spend a load of money, disappear off, and he goes on to his next job. It didn't really work out like that for him. But
he did get the job he was pushing for in the end, but it isn't working out for him well.
No, I'm not gonna lose any sleep to see him struggling. I'll tell you that for free, because I think he left us in a right mess.
And it turns out he's got the same, the way he treated Nias, he's treated players who aren't that bad either. He just seems to like sticking the knife into players.
Yeah, everyone's got their own management styles, and you look at Jose Mourinho and the whole thing with Luke Shaw, and there always seems to be a player that Mourinho falls out with. Dele Alli, he just never. There always seems to be this issue, but obviously he is a top manager. You look at Ronald Koeman; he hasn't really got the silverware to pull that off. I just don't think he's a very nice person, and look, everywhere he goes, there's someone talking about how poorly they've been treated. Pjanic was talking about it the other day as well. So
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, it's a trend, isn't it? I'm just glad he's not at Everton Football Club anymore.
That's for sure, yeah. But that's like I say, it's better than that. But I still think there's plenty of room for improvements, and it'd be nice to be kept up to speed with that a bit more. I think what I'm basically getting at here is I just want the club to communicate with us a bit more, and reassure us a bit.
Yeah, definitely. It would be like we've said a few times on this. It'd be just nice to have a bit of an idea. What are we actually looking to do over the next 3 years? What's our target? Are we looking to achieve Europe this year? Are we looking to achieve Champions League in 3 years' time? And we're going to do that by buying a younger. We're going to buy younger players. Be more shrewd, like a Dortmund or a Leipzig, at going after the right young players as opposed to just splashing money on players. But yeah, you don't have to tell us every single detail, but I would like to have some idea what the direction is and where we're going.
Definitely, but for now at least, we've just got to wait and see how this right back situation pans out. We've got Burnley on Saturday, is it?
Monday. It's a long wait.
Oh,
yeah,
it's Monday that long to wait, woman now. So yeah, at least it gives Coleman a bit more time to get over this knock then. Fingers crossed. But yeah, like you say, we don't want to be left in this position again, and we need to really get our act together on the transfer front. But in terms of the squad we've got, I think I'd like to think Benitez can squeeze as much as he can out of it. And, that might just paper over the cracks a little bit.
Yeah, look, Benitez is a man that he can work with what he's got. He tactically makes teams hard to beat. He makes them at times very hard to beat centrally. He really makes teams compact. And I think a couple of players now have come out and talked about having more direction and how they've been really impressed with them so far. I think Ben Godfrey was one of the first to come out and say that. I kind of read it as they were having a bit of a pop. Carlo Ancelotti as well.
Yeah,
there were rumours that he was just telling them, in training, just
play.
saying just play. And there was a lot of emphasis on Toffee Ancelotti doing a lot of the work on the training grounds. Seems to have turned. Rafa's certainly hands-on. Every clip that you see in training, he's got his arm around the player. He's explaining. He's always
got a clipboard out constantly. His little notepads, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. Visibly on the pitch. The 91st minute against Brighton, he was up and down, still demanding the best out of players, and we were 2-0 up there. So he's very much a tactician. He's very much hands-on.
Meticulous. Very meticulous.
Yeah, no, I think that's the perfect word to use for him. He's meticulous. And that can only help us. And that if that does give us that extra 15%, look, we weren't too far off Europe last year. I think we lacked consistency. I think we got 4 points off, weren't we? We
literally, I think 2 more wins would have done it.
Yeah, and look, we've potentially got extra players higher up the field now. We've got players that can affect the game coming off the bench. Hopefully it doesn't hurt us where we are thin on the grounds. And it's not, I'm a bit of an eternal optimist. I know that occasionally I say the odd negative thing, but I do believe that, that we should be in and around that 8th to 6th place. Everton should always be competing for trophies. Look, we're a football club that should be. But certainly I do think it's not beyond the realms of possibilities that we could certainly find ourselves higher up the table this year, just because we've got a bit more consistency, a bit more direction, and Rafa's just got that extra percent out of the team.
Well, hopefully that's what we get. I mean, the transfer hasn't gone well, but, we've had bad transfer windows before and had decent seasons, so we've just got to hope that's more of that and less of ended up with Sam Allardyce by the end of the season.
Don't say that. Don't. I can't take it. I can't take another 6 months. That was the worst 6 months of my life.
Isn't it just, mate? Well, here we go. Fingers crossed anyway. Burnley next on Monday night. We'll see how we get on. Let us know your opinions, guys, on the transfer policy and who you'd like to have seen us bring in, what you think we need to do next. Do you want the club to make a statement? Do you want them to, stay silent? I highly doubt you do, but You never know. Let us know your opinions. Drop us a comment. Give us a like and subscribe for more content. And of course, give County Road Bobblers a follow as well on social media. And yeah, check out the podcast as well. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching on the Toffee Blues.